What's up, guys? Welcome back to Quarter Twins, the only podcast where 2 quarters make $1. Welcome back to the Marvel Cinematic Juniverse. We are here talking about Phase 2. We're going to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi episodes 3 and 4 as well. And we have a guest today. Jordan, who's sitting next to you?
This is Elisha. You've seen Elisha before if
have.
you've watched all the episodes. He's returning to talk with us about Marvel stuff.
Heck yeah.
We talked about the Marvel Cinematic shows on Disney Plus last time. Now we're here to talk about Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That's
Very
right.
excited.
How exciting. It's going to be great. We are talking about 6 movies today in the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 2. What are those movies, Elisha? Do you have it pulled up?
Ooh, I have it pulled up. The movies, actually, do you have it in release order?
Got it right now.
The order is Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Ant-Man.
Ant-Man. They always they started sneaking in extra movies at the end of these phases.
I know.
We'll have to talk
It
about
feels like
that.
they
Thoughts
should
and
end
feelings.
with the Avengers movies.
It does.
Yeah.
But, whatever.
I don't want to give opinions on phase. I don't want to give opinions on Phase 3 in our
Right.
Phase 2 episode, but I hate
Yes.
that Phase 3 ends with Far From Home. I hate it.
oof.
It's
After Endgame,
after Endgame.
they snuck that one in there.
It doesn't really matter
It's
because
just
you could just
confusing.
call it the beginning of Phase 4 and it doesn't change anything. But
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
we're
Phase
not
2.
talking
Here we
about
are.
that phase or the next phase yet. We're talking about Phase 2. But
just a
before
phase.
we talk about
Yeah.
Phase 2, do you want to... Oh, no. We'll save it for the end, actually. Why don't we?
Yeah.
Because of
We'll run our
spoilers and
ad
stuff,
right now.
Oh.
And then the ad will run right after I say,
Yeah.
That'll be great.
Yes, I love it. oh.
Elisha, bring us back.
Oh, I don't want to do that. Somebody else should do that.
Welcome
I'm just
back!
here.
Something like that, Bring the energy, bring the hype.
Oh, I don't know about that.
You don't have to do that.
Me do it?
Just say something.
What are we doing after this?
We're going to
just
talk
doing
about
the-
Iron Man.
Going
order.
straight
We're
into
just
it.
going to
We're
go right
going
into
straight
it.
into it.
All right.
Be like,
Ready?
hey guys, that ad was great. I really love that service.
Oh.
I use it every day.
Every day.
Yeah, I'm starting my own podcast.
All right, ready? This
Okay.
is my chance.
What's the
we go.
podcast you're starting?
podcast? Oh God, I don't know.
Fake podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're back, and I have been tasked with the job to bring us back, and I'm not sure why. But wasn't that ad just delightful? I mean, really.
Yeah.
I love
So
that it
great.
stays the same every week, and
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
the same one take. That wasn't great, but it's the same one every week.
Hey now.
And
I'm glad somebody else can tell us how great our
did you
ad
watch
is.
I
the,
love it.
Did you watch the YouTube of us messing it up
The
over and over
outtakes?
again?
oh, absolutely, it's my favorite video you guys have put out. I
Great,
love
great,
it.
great.
Great. That makes us feel great. Anyway.
Speaking of the YouTube channel,
Mm.
if you haven't already
Nice
seen
segue.
it, which you probably have because it got great views, thank you for that, by the way. I just uploaded, well, not just, it was last week, uploaded the PC unboxing video, checking out Baddie Baddie, which we are recording on now. I got the webcam set up. We're here. The actual image quality and frame rate of my webcam is worse than my phone, but it's already in the system. So ultimately, it is much better for me in the long run. So we're excited. We're happy about that. You can check out the setup tour over on my YouTube channel, Razamaphu, RAZAMUPHU.
Is that out?
It is out. It came out today, actually.
Oh, well, there you go.
So
I've been
you
waiting.
can watch it right there. It's great. It's fantastic. I love it. So
Sweet.
let's talk about Phase 2.
Yes.
The first movie is Iron Man 3. Who has burning, passionate thoughts of this movie?
I think you do. I think you like this movie a lot.
I do.
And it's the only movie I have 0 notes on. So
Oof. Okay, well
We'll
then.
see.
I'll just bring you guys up to speed.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 is the best Iron Man movie. That is my opinion. It may not be shared by the rest of the board here. Um, it's the Iron Man movie, and probably, well, barring like brand new Phase 4 films, this is the movie I've seen the least in the MCU. I've seen Thor: The Dark World more times, even though it came out later. I never saw Iron Man 3 in theaters because people said it was bad. And then here we go. This is like a big point for me in the whole of Phase 2, is there's like this general consensus that this is like when I was starting to really get into the internet and being on YouTube and watching reviews and stuff. And this is about the time when I suddenly hated the Star Wars prequels. And I suddenly hated these movies that people didn't like and loved these movies that people liked. And I just let the internet form my opinions for me. And I think after watching through these movies again with my adult brain, I can kind of like, okay, these are my opinions. I'm going to let these opinions show. And now I have a podcast where I can talk about those opinions, and it's fantastic.
Where you're influencing other people's opinions.
Exactly.
Everybody needs to think like us.
Yes, exactly. So everybody start your own podcast and watch these movies again, because they're better or worse than you think they are. So Iron Man 3 is my favorite Iron Man movie. It's one of my favorite MCU movies. Spoilers ahead. I think this movie is the best because it kind of like Iron Man has, the villain is like a super hard counter to Iron Man. His abilities and his henchman's abilities are like almost specifically designed to defeat Iron Man suits. And what is Iron Man without the suit but a billionaire playboy philanthropist, right? But that's not very good in a fight. So Tony has to be smart in this movie. And I love Tony Stark being smart. So you get to see him do some Home Alone stuff and make some gadgets and gizmos and, play around fixing problems, which is what he's best at. It's so great. And I really, really think that this is one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best performances across the board, because he's starting to be more well-rounded, finally. And he understands his relationship with Pepper a little bit better, how much his past can continue to influence his future, which is kind of a big theme in this movie, actually. I would say that the negatives would mainly be the person that the villain is. I think the superpowers and like Extremis is really interesting, but Aldrich Killian bores me to death. And Ben Kingsley's Mandarin is funny and like a fun twist, but it's also like, okay, why did we do this? Killian's whole thing is like, he got rejected by Tony once and then spent the rest of his life planning this extreme, crazy, he's going to own the war on terror and be this bad guy just to spite Tony. And he's going to steal Gwyneth Paltrow away as his little trophy to prove it. And I don't know. It's like, so when you look back at Mickey Rourke and Whiplash and Justin Hammer, and even Obadiah, you're like, okay, these guys are kind of they all hate Tony because of what he did or what his father did. And there's no like actual side motivations for any of them. And then that is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
And then I think this is like a whatever problem, but I think the Iron Man movies came and went too quick. Iron Man 3, the third one, is done in 2013, and we're still making movies, right? 5 years go by before Infinity War, and there's like Civil War, It's like the only other movie he
Yeah.
shows up in. Maybe Homecoming, I guess. I don't know. He just like, I feel like they could have spread them out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think a lot of people's major issue with it is that it was marketed as Iron Man versus the Mandarin, and then people went and the Mandarin is just Ben Kingsley being Ben Kingsley, and people hated that and talked about it for years and years and made everybody think it was a bad movie. And like you said, the villains there's not much to the villains to even defend, so it's you kind of get where they're coming from. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. What do you think about it, Elisha? What do you think?
I think, well, while we're talking about phase stuff and like planning out the Marvel stuff, I think I actually kind of like that a lot of Iron Man's content is up front, that they put a lot of his movies up front, because it's frustrating now because it's like, well, we still care about him. We'd like to see more Iron Man movies, but all of them are done already. But I do like how Marvel, in the beginning at least, kind of would do like, we're just going to pour into this character really hard for like 3 movies, and then rest of the stuff he's in, you already are attached to him, so we don't need to build his character much more because you've already seen him so much. Same with like Thor, Captain America, all their movies are pretty up front. And now I think they're kind of doing like, we'll introduce the first movie of 7 trilogies, and then we'll start to wrap back around. We're just now getting a 3rd Guardians movie. And it's like, we've had them around for so long. Like they should have, or even like Captain Marvel, like whoever, there's so many movies or people that we only have one movie for that I have a hard time getting connected or attached to those characters just because I haven't seen them much on screen. So I kind of wish they would actually go back to doing that. But I also understand, it's like, man, I liked Iron Man and we had him so much up front and then we lost him for a long time before Endgame and stuff.
Yeah.
But this movie specifically, all right, here's the hot take. I like the Mandarin switch, that it's not actually the Mandarin, whatever. I like that whole thing. I really like because it just, especially with the Marvel movies, I think that sometimes, or the movies that were made around that time, a really easy villain to have was the Middle Eastern terrorist, obviously, because of what was going on in the country. That was a really easy peg to make villains that. And I like that this movie actually was like, we're gonna market it as that, and then we're actually gonna turn it completely on its head. It's not that at all. And just to kind of, I think it almost like pokes fun at the idea that like every bad guy has to be a Middle Eastern person. Like it just kind of pokes fun at that a little bit. And I just really like the character of Trevor. I understand most people hate it. I actually kind of love it. And I know, hot takes.
No, I don't mind it.
But I just enjoyed it a lot. And let me look at my list. Part of it is just, I really like Tony Stark. He's just a great character. So any movie that he's in, it's just, he's so witty. And not like he is witty, but also the writers behind Robert Downey Jr. are so witty for his character. And I also like that this movie helped to humanize him a little bit, because he's not just the billionaire playboy philanthropist. Like he all of a sudden is finally like, oh, like anxiety is a thing. Especially because one of the lines in the movie is that somebody suggests, I think it's Jarvis, suggests like, nothing's wrong. I think you're just have anxiety. And he says, me? And it's like, you, like you too. I loved that he had to wrestle with some really real life stuff that a lot of people wrestle with, but like even someone of his caliber, his money, his everything, his status also wrestles with that. I thought that was really cool to see him wrestle with something so real world that couldn't happen to me, because that's how I think most people with anxiety feel. Like that. Me though, like I thought that was for other people to wrestle with. It's like, no, it can happen to anybody. Only negatives I would say is that the motivation of the villain, just, when you're making villains, you have 23 villains for 23 movies. It's hard to actually find real motivations for it all the time. So I didn't think Killian's motivations were that. He got stood up for one opportunity one time and then devoted his whole life to it. Yeah. And then the only other thing is that Tony dealing with his anxiety. First of all, I want to give I loved it because it was, I think, the first time that any of the characters had gone through something really intense and then had to actually deal with the after effects. Like New York, all the heroes went through that. Tony's really the only one who wrestled with some big effects. We get that a lot more recently with Wanda going through all of her grief and all those kinds of things. They're dealing with that kind of real world. But when you go through a war like that, people come out the other side with trauma. But anyway, his wrestling with his anxiety was at times a little not realistic, because like he would have an anxiety attack and then like 30 seconds later it would be over, and it's like, I know you have to do that for plot, but it's like that's not at all what it's actually like. That's just so unrealistic. But I understand Hollywood, you have to move on with the story. Those are my only things.
Yeah,
it's a funny movie.
It's really
so
great,
funny.
honestly.
I
Happy
love
is so
it.
funny with the badges and all that
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah. I really like Happy in this movie. Yeah, I don't have much else to add. I think the third act sequence where he brings all of his suits and everything was so fun and creative, and he's like hopping between different suits and stuff, and you get to see more of like, he's not just building the same suit over and over again, like he's building suits that have different like strengths and that do different things, and that's really cool. And just for they can sell toys, and that's why they did it. But it's cool to see. It's cool to see.
A banger.
I love when
film,
Marvel,
for sure.
Yeah, really good.
I love when Marvel points out their own like little storytelling flaws in movies. So like Black Widow, the big thing was that Florence Pugh made fun of her superhero landing. It's like, yeah, okay, good. Point out that that's very silly. I like that. But this one, I think when he's in the Mandarin hideout and he's like shooting guards and stuff, and one of the guards just throws up his hands. He's like, dude, I just work here. They are so weird. It's like, I love that. It's like, in real life, guards like that would not be that devoted to the cause to die for it. It's like, I just work here. They're so weird. I thought that was hilarious. That's like my favorite part of the whole movie.
And he's like, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So funny.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's pretty
10
good.
out of 10, perfect film.
Are we just ranking it later?
Yeah, we'll rank the
we're
phase
gonna
at
rank
the
all
end
of them
here.
later.
Nice.
So next on the docket is Thor: The Dark World, also known as Thor 2, also known as Thor: The Dork World. This movie, the villains are the Dark Elves, Malekith.
They sure are.
They really are.
Elisha was here last weekend for a concert, and we attempted to watch Thor: The Dark World, and we got about
2/3 of the way in, probably.
Yeah,
maybe a little less.
A little bit less, because I fast forwarded through a lot of it.
Oh man,
because it's just so this is my main point, is that it's just a boring movie, and it's not bad enough to like have fun with your friends and laugh at, and it's not good enough to be a good movie and have fun watching it either. It's just boring, and there's nothing to it, and so it's just like, I don't want to spend any time watching this, which is a bummer because it's one of Thor's 3 movies. But I guess he's the only one getting a 4th one, I guess. But
that is true.
They might make an Iron Man 4, but it might not be RDJ.
My notes are that thing that I said about it being boring, and my second note is Odin.
Anthony Hopkins is great.
He's so
Anthony
good.
Hopkins is so good. He's talking to Loki at the beginning of the movie, and Loki is like, he has a birthright to the throne or something, and Anthony Hopkins goes, "Your birthright is to die." And it's just, it's so
it saves
funny.
the whole movie, honestly.
I would watch
glorious,
it again.
dude.
Yeah, he's so good at being Odin.
There's another moment later where Thor is talking to him about moving the conflict to the Dark Elves world so that Asgardians aren't put in harm's way. And he's like, "How many soldiers have to die?" And he cuts him off. He's like, "As many as are needed."
Yeah,
he just screams stuff. And I
forget what Thor says after that, but he says something, and Odin just goes, "Ah."
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's like, "You are an old man and a fool." No, that's in the first movie. But
what
he
does he
says
say?
he says something, and he's like,
It's something like that, though. Oh, another great line is that Thor is like talking up Odin to his face, and Odin says, "You must think me a piece of bread that needs to be buttered so heavily." And that line
me a piece of bread.
kills me.
You must think me bread.
Yeah. Or like Loki walking down the hallway and changing into different people. They get Chris
yes.
Evans to come in for like one line.
God bless America. Yeah.
I can feel the righteousness surging.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some funny stuff, but yeah, it just gets bogged down by all the dark elf stuff and the ether stuff.
Oh, dude, don't even get me started on the ether, man.
I'm pretty sure it had a lot of like reshoots and things. Like the original, it was one of those movies that had an original director who got like halfway through filming, and Marvel was like, "You're not doing this the way we want you to. Get out and hire somebody else." And then they made this, and it just has a lot of. It's just the villain he's just there. He's evil because he wants to have ultimate power. And that's how villains are, I guess.
Nothing like a good bit of universal domination.
Yeah. But there's just nothing great about it. Yeah. I don't think.
There's very little to redeem this one.
Yeah. I think it's got its brother storyline, like Thor and Loki learned to.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe get along, kind of, which I like to watch. And I also like that Loki gets to be very like God of Mischief. He gets to really play that up this movie, and I also like that a lot. Not enough.
His facade has kind of been torn off,
right?
And now he can kind of be like, "I'm the bad guy. I hate you guys. Right. I'm gonna do me."
I love the moment where their mom has been killed, and he's like, Thor goes to see Loki, and he like has an illusion up where he's just like, he's up as normal, and then Thor's like, drop the illusion, and it like fades to him, like the room is like destroyed, and he's on the floor like bleeding because he's so like distraught about his mother being killed. And I just love that like really vulnerable moment of Loki. And
you don't get to see him have emotions other than conniving very often, so it is good to see that.
And at the very least, this movie set up the next Infinity Stone, which is long-term important, but not very captivating or compelling.
I think it's so funny that in this movie, there's a scene where Odin is like, at the beginning of time, there were 6 Infinity Stones, and they did this, and they did this. And then in another movie in this phase, Guardians of the Galaxy, there's a scene where Benicio del Toro is like, in the beginning of time, there were 6 Infinity Stones, and they did this, and they're really powerful. And I get that they have to set it up.
In an Infinity War, but Doctor Strange gives another explanation.
Yes.
In the beginning of time.
Yeah.
I get it. It's probably necessary, but it's just funny.
Yeah. I have a tweet here from 2013. One of my first ever tweets. And I'm not going to quote it word for word. Because I'm afraid of opening links while recording. But it said something along the lines of, just saw the new Thor 2 movie. It was amazing. But there was no G on the amazing, so it was like amazing. So that's amazing. Like, it was amazing. Nice. That's like one of those things where I was a kid, I was 13, I saw this movie, I loved it, and then the internet came in and was like, this movie is terrible and you hate it. Right? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right, this movie was terrible. And so I just believed it, and then I saw it again and I was like, okay, Loki's funny, but yeah, this movie's bad.
Yeah.
So
I think it's also always harder on the first watch through to really know where it fits. Because I had only seen this movie once, and I thought it was pretty good, and I didn't understand why the internet hated it so much. And then I did watch it through the second time, and it was like, yeah, it's not great.
Leaves a bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too, because I remember watching it a lot when I was younger, when it came out, 13 years old. Like, I loved it. I don't like, what was it about it that I liked? Because now I can't.
Boom, big battle.
Yeah.
Ooh, hammer.
Yeah, I guess I do like there's the opening scene where the Warriors 3 are there and Thor comes in and they're having a big fight or whatever.
Yeah,
that's kind of fun seeing them do stuff together. But
I like seeing the stuff with Boar. I just think Boar is such a funny god
Boar.
Name. Boar.
We should talk about a good movie.
Okay, then I'll just skip the next one. Oh, just kidding.
What?
Would you guys agree? I still feel like Thor: The Dark World, it's not a great movie.
We're trying to move on.
I know, but I just need, within the canon of Marvel, it's not a great movie. But still, like, Marvel movies in general are pretty great.
Yeah, I mean,
so like Thor: The Dark World, I would still choose it over other non-Marvel movies that aren't great. Like Marvel's not great is still like good.
I mean,
feel like.
I'd watch any DC movie over Thor: The Dark World.
But what about the movie you just saw yesterday?
Would you watch Jurassic World
Yeah. Okay. Good.
over Thor: The Dark World?
That's a tough call. Jurassic World Dominion. I would probably watch it over. Nah, I don't know. Because that one is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And it has. I don't need to talk about it. Wow. Anyway.
Okay, let's move on, guys. Let's move on, guys. It's a terrible film.
And you hate it.
You hate it. Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yes.
Let's start with Jordan on this one, eh? What do you think? What are you feeling?
One of the best, in my opinion. I love Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Ooh. I saw it when it came out in theaters. Booyah. At the Warren Theater in Wichita, Kansas.
Shout out.
And yeah, that was a great experience. It was like, I wasn't a huge fan of the first Captain America, and he was, in the Avengers, and he was really kind of like goofy, and like his costume was terrible in that movie, and so this movie really takes him in a like, I'm serious and I'm cool and you're gonna like it type like. Like he's wearing a very not very colorful outfit. It's very like, it's kind of a quieter, darker, more reserved film that's a little bit more contemplative. Obviously, it's called The Winter Soldier because Bucky Barnes is alive and he's being the bad boy.
What?
What? I can't tell you that I was surprised by that. I don't think anybody was super surprised by the fact that Bucky was alive, but I really, really love. I don't know. I think this movie is probably has a major nostalgic aspect for me because I saw it when it came out and I really liked it, and I still really like it. But I love just the atmosphere of it, the way that it's shot, and the score and everything.
This is a Danny Elfman movie, right? Or James Howard?
I don't think it's Elfman. I think it's one of the other guys. I think it's Jackman. I think it's Henry Jackman.
Jackman.
Yeah, really cool score.
Yes, Henry Jackman is correct.
So I wasn't surprised by Bucky being alive, but I was surprised by the actually S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra, and we got to burn this thing down.
Yeah.
That was very shocking at the time, and that was like the first big like, this movie changes, what happens after it. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. is no longer a thing. I wasn't watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, so I don't know what they did with that show. You probably know, Joshua, but
yeah, I have thoughts and feelings about that, by the way. Trying to wrap all my thoughts into a cohesive thing, but I really like Anthony Mackie coming into the show, being Falcon. I think he's a good addition. I think he's the best in this movie, and he's a little bit less the best in the rest of the things that he's in. Other than his show, he's really good. So great in Ant-Man.
Yeah, dude. He's in Age of Ultron, which is really funny. He and Rhodey just show up for a couple of seconds at the end, and they're like, "Yeah, we're here too."
Yeah.
But my only negative is that I strongly believe that Nick Fury should have died in this movie because he shows up. I should have counted how many times he shows up after this, but he allegedly dies at one point in the movie, and it's really emotional for Black Widow. It gives Black Widow a reason to be a character, and then you realize that he's just alive. Yes, and then every time he shows up after this movie, if you took him out of that movie that he shows up in, it would not change, other than maybe like Captain Marvel, because that takes place before.
But that's also not him, because he's a Skrull.
In Spider-Man: Far From Home, he's a Skrull, which I'll save my Far From
Conversation
Home
for another day.
I'll save my Far From Home thoughts. Gosh, that's a bad movie.
We've already talked about Far From Home in your thoughts.
That's true.
That's true. we
Gosh,
have.
I hate that movie. It makes me angry. But I just really wish that they would have committed to, because after like Thor: The Dark World, Loki dies, but he didn't die, and then this movie, Nick Fury dies, but he didn't die. That kind of started the meme of like nobody ever dies in these things, and it makes you feel like they're probably fine. You know, the stakes are lower.
Yeah.
But I really, really love.
I really do love this movie.
I feel that way every time I give a long negative.
We gotta start with the bad so we can sound more
fair.
hype with the good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I love the action, and this is the first movie that. Gosh, I'm talking forever.
You're fine. You're all right. Come on.
This is the one I have a lot of notes. No, I like those movies too. This is the first movie that Joe and Anthony Russo directed, who went on to direct the Infinity War and Endgame movies. I think they're pretty good directors. I have issues with. I would do some things differently with the way that they direct some action scenes, but anyway, I like it.
Yeah, it's great.
What does somebody else think? Somebody else talk.
John.
Yeah, I'd like to briefly talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before I go into this one, because I am the resident
Enlighten
Agents of
us.
S.H.I.E.L.D. watcher. I've seen every
Yes.
episode, and I've seen the first 3 seasons like 5 times.
Nice.
Season 1, okay, spoilers ahead for these shows, at least a little bit of season 1. I'll try to keep like character deaths and that sort of thing out in
People
case you guys
die?
want to watch
I was gonna
it.
say, there's
some people
character
do-
deaths?
Some people
What?
do die in this show. Other
Wow,
characters
there
die 100 times and never die.
Because Coulson died, and he's not dead.
Yeah,
He's really not dead.
he's really, really not dead.
Deeply not dead.
yeah.
So the end of the first season it's revealed that Hydra is within S.H.I.E.L.D. And
That
at
early,
first, you think, this is great. This is going to be really fun and interesting. They're going to have to figure this out. Well, no, S.H.I.E.L.D. is completely obliterated and dissolved by the end of Winter Soldier and continues to be that way throughout the rest of the movies, only appearing in Age of Ultron with the helicarrier, and then like Maria Hill and Fury are like the remnants of it,
Yeah.
right? The show would have you believe that there's another S.H.I.E.L.D., a secret S.H.I.E.L.D., fighting in the shadows, all this extra stuff. It's not great. And it sounds like Joss Whedon didn't tell his younger brother, the like producer of the show, that Hydra was going to be a thing. So he didn't know that going into the first season, and by the end he had to like change some characters and some motivations and add characters to create a twist out of the blue. And then the whole show was like, oh wait, this is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer exists.
Right.
So they go
That's
on a
a
whole
poor
tangent.
planning decision.
Yeah. So the rest of the show is ruined by this movie. You can watch season 1 and genuinely enjoy it. There's some old like 2013, 2014 TV stuff in there. It is an ABC show, so there's also that. But like it's fun spy stuff, and like the stakes are a lot lower. You get to have a lot more human moments. The characters Fitz and Simmons are some of my favorite characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, bar none. All right.
Wow.
I love them to death. And they have a cult following on social media, those two. They're great.
Of course they do.
Is there a Fitz and Simmons subreddit?
I'm sure there is, with all sorts of art.
Yes.
And so I have a sore spot for this movie because it ruined what could have been a really good show.
Interesting.
But
I
that
remember
doesn't
seeing
detract-
the Ghost Rider episodes of Agents
Oh
of
yeah,
S.H.I.E.L.D.
he shows
Those are
up in
pretty cool.
season 4. He's all right.
Yeah.
He is not Nicolas Cage.
No, he's definitely
So that's
not.
great.
I wish he was.
That kind of would have been crazy actually. So I do think this movie is good. I think it gets a lot of praise for being a spy film noir thriller, and people just say that and they don't really know
Yeah.
You know, like they're just like, oh, the internet told me this is a spy thriller. It's great. I love it. And I think it has those qualities of like Fury's trying to figure out what's going on. Alexander Pierce is like very front and center in this movie, and he gets to, I think a lot of times when you're going to have a big twist, they'll like throw a character into a movie and then you're like, who's this person? We like them, we trust them, and then they're bad. And you're like, you look back at it and you're like, it's so obvious. But this movie, he's like in the front and has a lot of things to say and is kind of rude and brash. And that's almost a misdirect where he's like too obviously not good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it works pretty well when he turns out to be like the leader. So I think that's pretty good. I really like Steve Rogers in this movie. I think he's like, his superpower is stubbornness. He will never change, ever. He's like this perfect ideal man. The serum has created his personality, and like new information rarely ever changes his thoughts and feelings, other than when the Mind Stone made him look for the Hydra weapons. And I think this movie shows his like character a lot. When when Nick Fury shows him Project Insight, he goes in there and he's like, this is a bad idea, holding a gun to people's heads and calling it protection, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of reminded me of Moon Knight, where you have this, I thought the punishment usually came after the crime.
Yeah.
And then Fury is like, well, if people are threatened, they're not going to commit the crime. Which you say that and it sounds great, no crime, but no one is free, right? So you have this kind of moral battle that is focused a lot in Moon Knight. And I was like, oh, hey, we've talked about this before. Yeah. That makes me not like Moon Knight as much, which is really sad. But I like it. I think Peggy still being alive is not great.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's a little weird because it really doesn't mean anything, and he just shows up.
It kind of
once.
ruins the ending of the first Avenger when he says, because he wakes up in the future and he's like, I had a date, and it cuts to black. But then like she's alive, so you can just go talk to her. Like the emotional impact is, I mean, she's old, so like
married,
yeah, but like
a widow.
Yeah, it just kind of like it makes it weird. And then he like tries to get with her niece in the next couple movies, and yeah, it's a weird situation.
It's a weird situation.
But it's not real, it's fake.
Right.
So yeah. You got any thoughts over there?
I got some thoughts. I really like this movie, obviously.
Oh,
it's
good.
great. I remember, my history with Marvel is I was not on the Marvel train at all until COVID. And then I watched every movie all straight through, and it was awesome. And I remember even having not had much like time invested in the movies, I had still seen all of them up until Winter Soldier, and the reveal that S.H.I.E.L.D. was Hydra was groundbreaking. Like I remember not being able to believe that, and that Marvel would take such a huge thing that has been the foundation of like a lot of these movies and turn it on its head. I just remember thinking that was such a bold move and loving that they actually did it. Yeah, Josh, like you said, I love all the political morality, all the things you just said that are related to Moon Knight. I like rewatching this one. I think rewatching it, unfortunately, because the surprise, a lot of this movie is hinged on the twist. Yeah. And if you know the twist already, it is less exciting. And so that on a second watch through, I was like, I actually like this less than I did, because I know the twist is coming and it's still cool to watch the twist play out, but a lot of the greatness of this movie is hinging on that. Mm-hmm. And I was a little disappointed by that. A second watch through wasn't quite what I expected it to be. I do love, though, having now the Marvel Cinematic Universe now is so much space battles and powers that aren't really defined and are just so like overpowered. And it was nice to come back to a movie like this, which is so grounded and feels like this could actually happen in the real world. It's dealing with governments, but like not in a way that's over our heads and hard to understand. It's like, no, I understand what's happening and I get what's at stake, and it all just feels real and grounded. And I'm a huge fan.
Because you kind of feel like, as a society in real life, like we're not too far off from technology being able to like analyze your life and decide, oh, this is a bad person, we should get rid of them.
Right.
Like that feels like something that could very easily happen in the very near future. So
Right.
And
Spooky.
yeah, kind of like what you said, like rewatching Phase 1 and Phase 2, like it's nice to kind of go back to low stakes movies.
Yeah.
Instead of just like the universe is at stake. If we don't do something, the universe is gonna explode and everybody's gonna die.
Right.
It's nice to go back to like Ant-Man, where he's like, I just gotta stop this other guy.
Right.
Yeah.
This other guy who, if I don't stop him, he'll probably get rich, but like it's probably fine. Somebody else will stop him. Or like Iron Man 3. It's just, I just gotta stop this other guy.
Right.
Like it's.
And it's cool to see
He's
stakes.
gonna kill the president.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a whole thing.
It's whatever.
It's whatever.
It's not half the population, so.
Oh, here we go.
Oh.
Here's a Samantha cameo.
Hi. Sam's home.
Sam cameo. How are you? Okay.
The other thing, stakes wise, is that it's nice with the Marvel show or the Marvel movies to watch them from the start, because it does build on itself. And so like this is probably the biggest twist, biggest stakes there's been so far. I guess Avengers, Aliens.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. But other than the first Avengers
Well, we
movie,
knew about
That's
aliens
pretty
with
big.
Thor.
Yeah.
That's true.
But this feels so like, I guess just the twist of S.H.I.E.L.D. not being reliable feels like such a huge, the stakes are real for real now. And it's just cool to see that those were really big stakes back in the day. But now it's like, I mean, whatever, you know? Like it's not half the population disappearing. So it's just like Marvel, the stakes continue to get bigger. And what I'm concerned about is, how do we move forward from here? How can stakes get bigger? And do they need to? It's just nice to go back and watch a movie where the stakes aren't ridiculous.
Yeah.
Only other things I would say, it's kind of like Iron Man. I just love Iron Man 3 because I love Iron Man. I don't love the Winter Soldier because Captain America is just not really my jam. So that's like very opinionated, very subjective. He's not really my favorite. And so all of his movies, it's like, eh. And I think also part of why he might not be my favorite is that his movies, he had to share his movies. Like he got one movie, and then he got this movie, which really feels like an Avengers level movie. How many other characters are around for that movie?
Black Widow,
It's obviously
Falcon, Bucky.
It's obviously still about him, but it's also like mostly about S.H.I.E.L.D. more than it is about Captain America. And then Captain America Civil War really does feel like
It's an
the
Iron
fifth
Man
Avengers movie. Exactly. It feels
It's
like an Iron Man movie. And so it's like, I think I kind of would have liked to have more, help me fall in love with Captain America more rather than share his movies with so many other people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great movie. I'm a huge fan. Always need to say that.
It's perfect. It's great.
It's a perfect movie.
It's
for the most part.
perfect. Nothing wrong with it. Speaking of
Parting
perfect
thought
movies.
on Captain
Oh.
America. Hold that thought,
Okay.
Jordan.
Okay.
Put a pin in that. Just briefly.
Yeah, sure.
Mace Windu appears in this movie briefly. He has a quick cameo when the Winter Soldier
Oh my
appears, and Samuel L. Jackson pulls out a little lightsaber
Yeah.
and cuts a hole in the earth.
I've thought about that scene more than I've thought about anything, I feel like.
Wow.
It's just it's baffling.
It's-
Because he pulls out this thing and he goes, it's like a flame like about this tall.
Yeah.
And then like the Winter Soldier comes up and rips the door, and like I couldn't figure out what happened because like there's a hole cut in the roof of the car that's been turned over, but then there's just a hole tunneling into the earth.
And how
And
thick
so-
is that asphalt?
Right.
Like
You can't
so-
see.
I think the implication is he landed directly on top of like a pothole. I mean, not what is that called? A manhole.
Yeah, manhole, whatever. I
And
don't know.
it just so
Sewer?
happened to be right there where he cut up. He could get in it and go down. Or that's one option. Or he uses this little flame to burrow into the earth. And it's
If
just like,
so,
watch
where'd all the
ludicrous.
dirt go?
where'd all the dirt
Where's
go?
the dirt displacement?
He went
Also-
There's
into the
no
sewer.
way.
Also, he's a big guy. Can he fit in that
No.
hole?
Not with the
Anyway.
way he was crunched up. He couldn't like
Yeah.
wiggle his way down
So
into the hole. That
weird.
doesn't make any sense.
So weird.
In a matter
He
of 10
disappeared.
seconds.
Yeah. Anyway.
That's the whole thing.
Fantastic, dude.
There's got to be a better way for him to get out of that situation.
Great movie. We love it. And you love
Great
it
movie,
too.
Fantastic.
We love it so much.
Oh man,
Next,
the next
up
one.
on the list, the penultimate film before the second Avengers film. We
yes.
have Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
This movie came out of left field. No one knew
Sure
who
did.
any of these characters were, and now everybody loves them. They're great. They showed up in the Lego games. They're so
Everybody
popular.
loves
Hey,
them.
don't look at me like that, okay? I haven't even talked
Everybody
to you.
does.
I haven't even been able to speak yet.
It's perfect.
It's perfect, and we all love it so much. It's my favorite.
Yep.
So,
Anyway,
think,
Avengers: Age of Ultron.
I think this movie is so good, dude. I think
Yeah.
all of the characters. Okay, something I thought about in bed last night while I was talking about these movies to prep for this podcast. I was talking about how a lot of the villains in this phase are really bad, and they feel like they were created in the timeline by the TVA and just plopped into this moment for this film, and then they were erased, and their
Yep.
existence only exists in their 2.5 hour runtime, and then they're just plucked out of existence. And Ronan included, sadly, in this film.
Yeah. Yep.
But
Bad villain.
we've had a lot of origin stories in the past, and then we have Captain America 2, Thor 2, Iron Man 3. We've had these origin stories, and now we've had other films to build these characters further. And then this is the first non-Avengers or Iron Man movie, or Captain America, Thor,
Right.
the original 3 plus Avengers. This is the first one that's not about those characters.
Really?
And that is wild to me
Yeah.
when I was
didn't
looking
realize
back.
that.
But these characters, they're so far removed from what we're dealing with right now. They're not in the next Avengers movie immediately after this. They don't
Yeah.
show up again, or they don't meet anybody in the rest of the cinematic universe till Infinity War. But they
Interesting.
started here in Phase 2, and they feel like they have been a part of the cinematic universe for a long time. I think it was an absolute banger move to put this movie early in the
Yes.
cinematic universe,
Yes.
so that these characters could exist for a long time, like you were saying about Iron Man, and have us attached to these characters. By the time they show up in Infinity War, we can care about them. Yes! I love it, dude.
Yes.
It's
That is
so
cool. I've never
great.
realized all that before.
It's so good. It's
So-
like. Oh,
yeah,
you
just
go
thinking
ahead.
about the overall planning of it all. It's
Yeah.
crazy how this one outlandish film that they decided to make, they're like, we're just gonna put this in here. Everybody loves Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, whatever. Guardians of the Galaxy. You've never heard of any of these people. We're just
Yeah.
gonna throw these guys at you. And so I really like it. James Gunn comes in. He's like, hey, what's up, guys? I just made the greatest movie ever. And so we
Yeah.
get this fun soundtrack. We get these great characters. And one thing that I really think is cool about this movie is you have the Ravagers aesthetic and you have the Guardians aesthetic, and the prison and everything kind of has this 80s synthwave, red and blue and green, and yellow kind of figure, and it looks like a classic Marvel movie. And then Ronan comes in, and it's professionally shot, James Cameron Prometheus, this dark blacks, blues, purples.
Yeah.
It looks completely different. He takes himself so seriously. And then you go back to these goofballs, and it's this really fun dichotomy that you see in the movie.
Yeah.
Ronan is a bad character, but he looks great.
Yeah. And it's like you're saying, it seems intentional that he's kind of just a villain for the sake of giving these characters, the Guardians, a reason to come together, just in the face of just evil for pure evil's sake, basically. And yeah, it's a good, like you said, it's this colorful, goofy band of characters up against this ultra serious, I'm gonna I'm gonna kill the.
I will purify Xandar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it also gives us an excuse to see Thanos again before Infinity War stuff happens. I really like that Thanos scene. Yeah. Did you have anything else, Joshua, that you wanted to add?
I think Bradley Cooper and Dave Bautista are super funny. I think Dave Bautista, I don't know how many performances he had acting-wise before this movie, but he's like, what, WWE?
Yeah,
like pro
I think
wrestler
this
dude.
was his first movie,
And he shows up, and like, sure, Drax isn't like a super complex, deep character,
Yeah,
but he still gives it like a beautiful performance. And in Guardians 2, I think he's even better, and I think it's so good. And then he shows up in my number 3 of all time movie, Blade Runner 2049.
Oh, yeah.
And he is mwah in that movie.
He is.
It's so great. And his performance is very short, but he's like, hey, what's up, guys? I'm great. I'm really good at this
I'm
acting thing. I figured it out. So that's really all I
Yeah.
have to say up front. It's so good. I love it so
yeah.
much.
I'll add my thoughts and I'll let you talk
There you
about
go.
it.
There you go.
Yeah, obviously, like everybody and their mom knows the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack and had it running on their on their playlists when it came out. Like, and the decision to have the music in the movie come from the main emotional plot point of the movie, the Peter Quill's Walkman that his mom gave him, the tape with all that music in. It's just genius what James Gunn did with that. I mean, like, the Peter Quill's emotional character arc revolves around this music, and he weaves it throughout the film in such a great way. And then movies like Suicide Squad, the first one, the bad one, tried to use music similarly, but they just like, their method was just like, okay, here's
We're going
the
to use
movie.
this music.
Just put the music in it for no reason. And people will still like it, but we didn't. We hated it. And you hate it too. But James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie is just all
so
bangers all the
great.
time. 5 stars all the way across. Have you
Great
seen
movie.
Which one?
that? The Suicide Squad?
No.
James Gunn?
I
You would
haven't
probably-
seen most DC stuff.
You would probably hate it, knowing you. You would.
I probably would.
What else did I want to say? Oh, I really like. I never noticed until I watched it recently that like Peter Quill. I noticed Peter Quill is from Missouri. And like
Rep.
this last time that I watched it, I had a moment where I was like, yeah, I buy that. Like,
Absolutely.
like he acts like as somebody who's from Missouri and
Absolutely.
Kansas area, like the way he talks and like kind of carries himself. You really like. I have friends that act like him, and like he just, I don't know. He seems genuine in that way, and that's just a little thing that I like. That it just seems like this guy's actually from Missouri, which is cool.
That's awesome, actually.
Yeah, and his relationship with Yondu is like one of the best things in the entire cinematic universe, and they set him up so well, Yondu, as being like a kind of like abusive father figure to Peter, and then as the movies go on, you realize that they had like real love for each other, and that Yondu was kind of trying his best to be a father, trying his best but failing, and trying to show Peter that he loves him even though he doesn't know how. And Yondu's like whistling arrow thing is just a cool little addition.
Pretty sick.
There's just so much in this movie that is so like creative and unique in the way that it's shot and produced is so like it's a movie where these people are called Guardians of the Galaxy, and it's very it takes place in space, and it's very colorful, which is a great like counter to like something like the Winter Soldier, which is very like, this is Earth and it's gray and it's fine, but like it's not space. So
Space
I
is
really like
sweet.
the way this
Space
movie
is
looks.
cool.
Do you remember? I think it's Infinity War when we've been in like the whole like Earth world talking about Thanos, whatever, and then it cuts to we're gonna address the Guardians, and then the title card for where they are just says space.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part of that whole movie. I freaking love
that. Yeah, we talked about Ronan. I don't have much else to say. I don't think.
I feel like we're building towards something here
Look,
on Elisha's end.
here's
Alright,
the thing.
what do you have to say?
Here's the thing.
He has a long list.
I have a
of
long
bad
list.
things.
Here's the
boy,
thing.
oh boy.
I'm not going to talk about all of them, though. Here's the general. I watched this movie, again, when I watched them all in COVID, and I hated this movie upon first watch. I just didn't get it. Like, I didn't think it was funny. I didn't think it was cute. I did. I
You were
did.
like,
I
hate this
absolutely
movie.
did.
And
I was
said,
like,
you're crazy.
because I thought the opinion was everybody hates this movie. I just assumed because it was so obvious to me that it was bad. And apparently that is not at all the case.
No.
However, upon a second watch, I will concede I enjoyed it much more the second time.
Oh, that's good.
And I can see why people really like it. I myself don't necessarily still. Most of my everything I'm going to say right now is pretty subjective. I can agree that from an objective art point of view, great film. I will say that here and now.
Sounds good.
However, and I hope there's at least one of you out there listening who also doesn't like this movie, and I'm not just talking to people who love it. But I personally just don't really love it. What I do love is that it introduced Thanos and the Stones, which is fascinating because they weren't part of the next Avengers movie or even talked about for so long. I think it's cool that they used these guys to introduce Thanos. John C. Reilly is always a win. I think he's hilarious in everything that he's in, and I love that he is in this movie. I do like the use of the soundtrack, obviously. Who doesn't? However, I also
Crazy
realized
people.
that the order of watching this movie, like I watched it in 2020, so some things don't hit the same for me because I didn't watch it in 2014. So like the soundtrack thing was lost on me because I had seen Stranger Things do that first for me. And now I realize, oh, this came out 2 years before Stranger Things. This was like the prototype. And then Stranger Things was like, oh, that's cool. Let's do that with our show. But I had seen Stranger Things do
It's
it first.
not really the same thing.
It's similar.
Not really.
You don't think so?
No,
How is it not?
because Guardians of the Galaxy.
really.
Because in Guardians of the Galaxy, like I said previously, the music is part of the plot. Like Stranger Things,
Yeah.
it's 80s music because the
sets the
show takes
environment.
place in the 80s,
Right.
but it's not
The music in
plot
Stranger
point.
Things is more for setting than
Yes,
it is
yes, yes,
for
yes, yes.
plot. I agree with that.
because there's no reason to have 80s music in space,
Right.
other than
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But having
Well done, well
watched
done.
Stranger Things first,
said.
I was
Yeah,
still
rebuttal.
hold on. I was still like, it's not as good as when Stranger Things did it. At least that's what I felt. But I can concede that they did it first, and so I have to owe all of how good Stranger Things was to Guardians. Probably was the first one to really do it. I think probably leading from the order of things I watched it, I felt the opposite. That it felt as though to me the mom storyline wasn't actually that central. And it felt to me, both times watching it, even the second time, I felt as though he's giving me a bad look right now. I think that it felt like they put the mom scene in the beginning as an excuse to have a good soundtrack for the movie. Like it didn't feel like the soundtrack flowed out of this emotional place. It felt like they wanted to have a cool soundtrack and they wanted to have a good reason for it, which I appreciate, but it's still like, okay, but don't make me try to feel for this character and then never bring her up again until the very end of the film if it's just for a soundtrack. That was one thing that
they bring her up multiple times.
When?
Multiple times. He goes, don't touch my box. That's from my mom.
box. I do remember that. So anyway, again, a lot of this is very subjective because I think I watched it at the wrong time, but that's how I feel about the music. It just felt like a shtick for me. Another thing that felt like a shtick to me, which I don't love, is Groot, the I Am Groot. I just don't get it. I don't think it's funny.
You have a problem with it.
I'm really sorry.
It's not supposed to be funny.
I don't
most
think
of
it's
the time.
cute. I don't think it's endearing. I don't get it.
That's fair, I guess.
Again, very subjective.
Everybody's.
I don't want to
entitled
be a
their own
hate fest
opinion.
on this movie, but I've been preparing for this for a while. I just personally don't think Groot is funny. I also don't think Rocket is funny. I think Guardians of the Galaxy just has a very specific sense of humor that I just don't vibe with. It's just not funny to me. It's like,
That's fair.
I don't want to. it's like annoying more than funny to me. And that's just, I think it ruins a lot of the movie for me, because the movie is funny and the movie is the soundtrack, and both those things are kind of lost on me, which is frustrating because I want to like this movie. I really do. I liked it a lot more the second time through. It will not be at the bottom of my whole Marvel list like it has been up until right now. I'll say that. But I'm just not a huge fan.
Well,
and same thing, the last thing I'll say, same thing with the sense of humor thing. The fact that the climax of this film is Ronan and then Peter Quill has a dance off.
Yeah. It's genius, right?
It's not
so great.
Genius.
It is genius.
I hate that part. There's no arguing with you guys though, because you love it so much. I just think that's so. It's just bad storytelling. It's like they don't actually have a way to beat him. They're just gonna be goofy.
How is it bad storytelling?
Being goofy is enough.
If you're gonna call it bad storytelling, I mean, like
being goofy is enough.
He has an
to beat
Infinity
this
Stone.
huge,
How are they
crazy
supposed to
villain.
actually stop him?
he was distracting him.
Right.
Yeah.
But a real villain who's that insanely angry and stuff wouldn't have been distracted. He would have wiped them off the face of the planet.
I mean, I guess.
So anyway, for all those reasons,
Maybe
the
so.
movie is just goofy and silly and funny. And I don't know that it's just not for me, I guess. It's very subjective. Again, I will say 100 times, this is a great film.
This is all subjective.
It's all
Come
subjective.
on.
But it is, I think, objectively a great film, great art. Huge fan. But I just don't
He
like
goes,
it.
objectively, it's great.
Objectively,
I hate
it's a
it.
good film. I understand why people like
Personally,
it. It's
this
just
movie
not
sucks.
for me.
But
There's
I will
plenty of
admit,
movies that are
it's a
objectively great
fantastic
that you
movie.
might not enjoy.
You're right,
Titanic,
you're right.
it's objectively a masterpiece. Nobody can sit through it though, because it's not a fun
well,
movie. Anyway, that's
Anyway.
how I feel about Guardians of the Galaxy.
Interesting point.
That's my hottest take of the day, and it's over.
What an interesting point. He did. Oh man.
All right. Well, this episode's going to be like 10 years long, so let's move on.
Gosh,
We only have two more. Only two more.
only two
Yeah,
more.
and
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
And Miss Marvel
let's
if we
talk
get
about
to
the
it.
second Avengers movie, Avengers: Age of Ultron. Oh my goodness, this
Man.
movie is a movie that occurred.
2015. I have lots of notes, Joshua. You don't have very many.
I don't have a ton of notes.
I
you have
just
a lot
watched
of
it
notes.
yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, I watched this a while ago. I'll go, and then you can hit us up with all your many words.
All right.
I would like to say I'm gonna just bear with me on this one, okay? I think Ultron is super funny. Okay, now bear with me. I know.
Yep.
Here's
I
the
know where
thing.
this is going.
Just because he's funny doesn't make it good. All right.
Yes.
Now,
That's what
now,
I just said.
It's
okay,
different.
Oh
It's
my
it is
different.
so different. The
Different
tone
humor.
of Guardians is light, right? You have the
Sure.
levity, you have the fun. This movie is about an AI trying to take over the world and kill every human on Earth.
Yeah.
Starting with the Avengers making a show of it, Tony Stark style. But then he sits there making jokes about omelets and stuff. It just doesn't work for me. It's not great. It's funny and he makes great jokes,
Oh yeah.
but that doesn't make it good. You know, it's
And
like
it's
distracting.
It's explained as he's funny because Tony is funny and he was created by Tony. But that doesn't make it good.
Yeah.
It's not a good enough excuse. I also this might hurt Elisha's feelings. I really don't like Wanda in this movie
Yeah.
and
Huh,
Quicksilver. I think
Interesting.
I saw a meme yesterday. It's the classic the mother holding up her baby in the pool and then her other kid like right in front of the camera drowning, and then there's like a cut underneath and there's like
Yeah.
a skeleton sitting on a chair at the bottom of the ocean. And the mother is Wanda holding up her sons, and then the drowning kid is Vision, and at the bottom of the ocean is Quicksilver.
Quicksilver, yeah.
And it's like she's completely forgotten about her brother and her husband, and instead wants to love these fake sons she never had. And so I look back at this movie, and she's got an accent, and her powers are super weird and weak, and Quicksilver exists, and it's like, what is happening? How did this WandaVision come from this character?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I really don't have, I, I just don't like them because
Yeah.
I don't know, if Quicksilver existed in the rest of the movies, I think it would have
Mhm.
been,
Mhm.
she would have had more like someone to hold her back in Sokovia a little bit and kind of
Yeah.
keep her character grounded, because she kind of becomes like every other Avenger by the end.
Yeah.
And I think she has an interesting character to begin with, but she has no one from that time anymore, and she kind of just loses herself in the cinematic universe. So
'Cause,
that
like,
I don't like.
in this movie, she sides with Ultron because Tony Stark effectively killed her parents.
Right.
But at the end of this movie, they never really address that again. She's just friends with Tony. And she joins the Avengers even though he killed her parents, and it's never talked about. So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Wanda and Tony should have they shouldn't have actually like fought.
Yeah.
Like there
I don't
shouldn't have
think
been
they
an
even-
action
I
scene
don't think
about
they
it.
talk
but
to each
They
other.
should have, yeah. There should be something about that.
yeah.
I agree.
And then, in Civil War, Wanda sides with Captain America, which is against the oversight, which I think would have been very beneficial around the time that her country was destroyed. So it's just kind of a little awkward. I mean, I know she like bombed a medical facility in Lagos, so like I get it. She's gonna be on the wrong side of the law. She's definitely getting arrested.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know. She kind of flip flops a lot of times and loses herself across the timeline, and it's sad to see it start here because I feel like she had hope at the beginning. So that's what I don't like. I do like the party. Bruce Banner, Hawkeye gets this like sick death fake out throughout the whole movie. They're like joking about him dying, and then you have this moment and they're like, he's gonna die, and then they fake it out with Quicksilver. I like that for him, not for Quicksilver, but I like it for
Poor
Hawkeye.
guy. Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead. I'll go last.
My biggest thing about this movie is character development. I think they did a pretty great job generally on everybody. First of all, it's just so hard to write all these characters coming together and interacting with each other. So every time they make an Avengers movie and it's good, I'm shocked. It's just insane. I think to counter the Wanda thing, obviously, I do think she has turned out to be a pretty different character from when we first saw her. But I do like this movie. We got to see her grief. Like, she's already in the grief stage. That is a common theme for her throughout. And even when Quicksilver dies, and in movie fashion, she feels that he died, whatever. I can look over that. She feels that he died, and she crumbles to her knees, and like some power goes out from her, and all the robots around her get disintegrated. And just to see like that looks exactly like WandaVision. Like it's those moments that it's like, no, that is the same character we're about to see. And she even, they write her lines so well. And just, I love that she is like a, what is the word I'm looking for? Like a perfect example of like, here's the character where we express grief. Here's the character where we talk about what grief looks like. I just love that is part of her character. I love that Hawkeye got some love, got a little bit of character development. Finally, it's not a lot, but it's something. And I love that he got some, he's got family that nobody knew about. I think that's sick. It makes a little more sense. It helps you to connect why Black Widow and Hawkeye care about each other so much, because you get to understand like, oh, like his kids know Natasha's name. Yeah. Like that's how close they are. Mm-hmm. That was cool. I wish there was a movie about them too, but
yeah, he's kind of neglected in the Black Widow movie a little.
I know, isn't it? It's so they make so many jokes about Budapest, and that never got explained. It's just an inside joke between them that we never know about.
She kind of talks about it in Black Widow, right? She goes
a little bit
in Budapest, and she's like, "Yeah, me and Hawkeye were here that one time."
Yeah, it's still just another reference to when it apparently happened at some point. We have no idea what happened.
Right.
Other character, Vision, introduce Vision. I love that Vision exists. I love the way that he came to life, and specifically just cinematically, the way that he's like in the coffin looking thing, and then when Thor slams the hammer down and electrocutes him, I guess, he comes to life, and he doesn't like come out of it like a zombie, or he doesn't like float out of it. He like comes out of it like this and kind of lands in like a superhero pose. And I just, the way that his body rotates in the air on strings and whatever, it just looks so good.
Yep.
And I just love that moment.
I think this was the first time
And
I
his makeup is
experienced.
practical.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think this was the first time I experienced cheering in a theater when he lifts Thor's hammer and he says, "But we gotta go."
Oh,
I think that was like people freaked
it's
out.
so good.
And yeah, I mean that scene holds up still
Oh,
because
man.
they set it up so well at the party scene. Like they have a whole thing
Yes.
dedicated to like none of these people can lift this, and it's like it's a
Steve
good. It
might
doesn't
be
feel out
able
of
to.
place. Oh yeah, he was Captain America maybe
Yeah.
could have, but so
Man.
good.
And it's when they're specifically talking about like, how do we know you're not just another Ultron? And he just he's like, you just gonna have to trust me, whatever. And he casually grabs the hammer. I don't even think Vision probably understands the weight of that. He just is like trying to help Thor out. Here's your hammer. We gotta go.
I love when he goes,
And everybody else is like, whoa.
I love when he says, I am.
Yes.
You're like, are you God?
Yeah.
Are you saying you're God right
I am
now?
not good
I
or
am.
evil. I am. It's so good.
Oh.
Character development wise, still too, when it's cool to see Wanda just completely take down the whole team, just single-handedly. It's just like proof from the beginning that she's just completely overpowered. But to watch her use her abilities for more sneaky, like mind tricking and forcing them to like face their PTSD and their trauma and stuff, I think that's interesting. She doesn't do that much anymore. She did a little bit in Multiverse of Madness, get inside people's brains. But I just like that part of her, and I liked to watch what is each character's biggest fear, what is each character's nightmare. I thought that was really cool.
She did
Yes.
Briefly enslave an entire town.
Well, sure,
in their minds. In her
Honestly, it's a
vision.
very good point.
It's fine. She's yeah.
A very good point.
She was sad. So
She was
it's
so
fine.
sad.
She was sad. Very sad.
The only other good thing I would say is the cinematography. Just about every scene, I think, is just beautiful and perfect. I just love it.
Interesting.
You disagree, huh? There's so many moments.
It's
Just like,
fine.
man, I just
Kinda
love
flat.
that.
Yeah.
Let me look. I have negatives. I don't really buy the chemistry between Hulk and Black Widow. I just don't think those actors have much
Came out
going
of
for
nowhere.
them chemistry-wise. Also, the relationship came out of nowhere. Just
Nowhere.
feels strange.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this movie, the lack of... this is like the only Avengers movie that doesn't have the like trademark score in it. It never has a moment. Dun, 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 dun. It never has that. And it does, like, I noticed it, and I looked it up to see if that was true, and it is. This is the only movie, I don't know why, but it's the only movie that doesn't have the trademark score. And it
Alan
does. I
Silvestri.
noticed it, and I was like, it's lacking. It's missing
It
a
has
moment
notes
where
of
that
it
happens.
every now and then, but it's not Alan.
Yeah, it's not.
It's old
Alan.
it's
Good
old Danny
Alan.
Elfman.
Alan.
Anyway,
So
I
interesting.
really,
Parker.
really love this movie. And I thought that this was my least favorite Avengers movie, and that might not be true now. Upon a second watch, I realized how much I
feel the
actually
same
really do
way.
love this movie.
Yeah.
What
I
in
feel the
world
same
the
way.
heck is he-
Joshua had the Avengers as his favorite Phase 1 movie, but like okay, so here's my section. He's freaking out now.
I'm getting scared here.
So this was one of the movies where I was baited into thinking it was terrible by the internet. Everybody says this is the worst Avengers movie, and I thought it was too, because it kind of fades into the background of everything else because it's Avengers at Infinity War and Endgame like are so, I mean, in quality they're both so far above this one, but in story they're so incredibly on a higher scale. I mean, Ultron does want to destroy the entire world and kill everybody, but like it's our planet versus the universe, which in Marvel like that's a big thing because that's a lot of people in the Marvel universe.
It's more for sure.
But I watched it again and I was like, is this fun? Like, am I having fun with this movie? Because like I think this is pretty good. because I talked about how much I really dislike Joss Whedon's everything that he does in the first movie, his direction and his writing. And the writing in this movie, Joss Whedon's dialogue writing, is still bad. There's a lot of just like lines that mean nothing, and people say things that I'm like, a human would never say that. I'm just like, I wrote one down. Oh yeah. Maria Hill is like talking to Captain America about Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and she's like, they're from Sokovia, and he's like, where's that? And she's like, it's nowhere special, but it's on the way to everywhere special. I was like, what do you mean? What are you saying? And then another one, after Ultron's first appearance, Thor grabs Tony by the throat and holds him up on a wall, choking him. And Captain America goes, Thor, the Legionnaire. And Thor puts him down. I'm like, what is that? What does that mean? Why does that convince you to? I'm just like, what?
Do you know what the Legionnaire
I
is?
I don't.
Okay, so the Legionnaire is a member of a legion, hence the Iron Legion, the one that flew away, that stole whatever, or like got away. So Thor chased that Legionnaire off, but it got away. So he is asking him what happened to the Legionnaire, but he says Thor the Legionnaire.
Yeah.
And it's not a question. He's asking a question,
Thor,
but it
the
doesn't sound
Legionnaire.
like he's. Yeah. So he's like, it got
What?
away, or the trail went cold, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
All right.
the way he says it, he's just like, Thor, the Legionnaire.
Yeah.
But
it makes sense now, I guess, that you explained it. But like, it's always been a line where I'm like, what is that? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't even know what he said in that line until this last time I watched it. I was like, Legionnaire. I know what that means now. That's an one of the robots.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I really love the party sequence at Avengers Tower where it's just a long sequence of just dudes hanging out. They're just, they're drinking, they're partying, they're hanging out, talking, they're flirting with each other. They're just like being humans, and it's just like something that you don't see very often at all after this movie. I really like that.
No more
scene.
shawarma after the
No more
earlier
shawarma.
movies.
No more shawarma. Yeah, we talked about Ultron. I think I don't know, his motivation makes sense, I guess. And I think he is like the fact that he can be one place and transfer his consciousness
Nice.
Instantaneously to another end of the globe, like, and so you can be killing his robot body, but that doesn't do anything because he has a million more. Like, that's interesting, and that adds a level of stakes to it. But his characterization leaves you to not be intimidated by him, because he's just constantly like, they're the best metal on earth, and they used it to make a frisbee. Funny joke. Stuff
I
like
laughed
that.
again. I thought it was good.
It's a funny joke, but like, I don't know, whatever. Oh yeah, I hate that Nick Fury's in this movie. I hate it.
Yeah.
Just get out. We don't need. He comes in to give them a pep talk, but like, do they really need him to do that? Like, could they have Hawkeye give the Avengers a pep talk, because he's the only one who didn't experience Wanda's manipulation or whatever. He kind of is set up as this, like, the Avengers need him in this movie. I don't know, maybe give that to him instead of a character that
Hawkeye's
died.
wife as the only non-hero.
Yeah, I
like
guess so.
no, like we need you guys.
Somebody else.
Anybody else.
Yeah, I like the Avengers being a small team of people, like, going out and doing things instead of like 30 plus people fighting a universe army of aliens. I love the Hulkbuster scene where Hulk is going on a rampage and Iron Man has to fight him off, and he's like,
Give me a hand,
that's another thing I
Veronica.
wanted to say about the score. I don't like Elfman's overall score, but Elfman is the only composer. Well, maybe not the only composer, but he. In these movies, whenever like Iron Man suits up, he uses the Iron Man theme from Iron Man 3. Or when Thor is doing something, he uses the Thor theme. Or when Captain America, he uses the Captain America theme. And I love little things like that because it's like it's an
That's
easy
what themes
like
are for.
it's a theme,
Right.
it's a character theme.
Yeah.
So I really like that part of the score. When Iron Man when he's suiting up into the big Hulkbuster suit, you get that little Iron Man 3 theme, and I love it because I love that theme in Iron Man 3.
It's good. Good.
Do like the conversation that they have about being Banner being a monster and Natasha being like, well, I'm a monster too, and like that characterization I think is good, and you get like more insight into like how these people interact and how they see themselves, which I think is really good. But what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say about the score. I do really like, and this might be a controversial opinion because I've seen some internet reviewers really hate on the title card, but I actually really like the title card in this movie. I'm a sucker for title cards. I think it's like it's such an interesting little niche piece of a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
The TV show The Boys, which is about superheroes if they actually existed in our world, like realistically, and they're like disgusting money grabbing bad guys. It's awesome. They have like a set title card that they use every episode. It's just like a PNG of their logo, but they'll place it at this random point and have the music going and stuff behind it, and it's like they always place it in this perfectly well done spot. And I think it's like a really interesting little like art form of the title card. In this movie, Avengers: Age of Ultron, I said the whole title. That was great. It's like very jarring. He like grabs the scepter and it kind of cuts a little late, but the music swells and you get the like Avengers logo, and then it like pulls back and the Age of Ultron kind of like folds in front of it. I think that looks really cool, and the music's like bah, 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 bah. It's like it gets me hyped for the movie a little bit. But then, like you said, the rest of the score is completely bland, and like I can't think of a moment when the music even came in loudly enough for me to focus on it.
Right.
And but that one little moment, I was like, "Ooh, yeah, that's nice. I like that."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's all I have to say on Ultron. Are we ready to move on?
Yeah, let's move
so.
on. I could say more, but
Let's get on to our
running out of
last
time.
one. Because we still got to rank these and talk
I
about
forgot
it.
I made notes.
So,
Yeah.
Ant-Man 2015. I'm going to start.
All right, go ahead.
I got things to say. I watched this movie last night and a little bit this morning, as in 12 hours ago at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, whoa, that is also a movie in phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about it a little bit. I don't like that it's the technical end of phase 2, because it's just like another random origin story movie. And
it just feels like how the phases are divided it just doesn't matter. Like there's no rhyme
it's
or
like
reason to
it's shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it should be.
Yeah.
It should be at the end of the Avengers movies, but like you said earlier too, it doesn't really matter. So that's whatever. Yeah. I think this is about the time when I first experienced Marvel fatigue, like going through it in like actual release order, living it, right? I was like, we're still going, and we got origin stories now. We're like, oh my gosh,
This is a
I
new guy.
I can't
like
keep up. Another bug, whatever.
Yeah.
But then I watched the movie and I was like, oh wait, never mind. I love this. This is great. So I think my biggest thing in this movie is the cinematography. When during COVID, like Elisha, I watched all of the Marvel movies in release order with my parents. And I had my own little special Marvel ranking system with like a bunch of categories, and I was going to give awards to each movie. And this movie received Best Cinematography.
Nice.
for its use
Really?
of the macro lens.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So when Paul Rudd, what's his character's name? Scott. When
Scott
Scott
Lang.
gets small and he shrinks in there, they like use this super zoomed in macro lens on the camera to get these like close up shots of small things.
Mhm.
And there's a little bit of CGI blending in there, adding dust and ants and whatever else. But like the actual shots, most of the shots when he is small are real.
Yeah.
And I think that is such an interesting, like, artists are going to be artists. They're going to figure out a way to do something clever.
Yeah.
And I love when studios give them that ability, because they could have easily made all of those shots CGI. It probably would have saved a little bit of money and time. And it would have looked pretty much the same. But the fact that it is real gives it a little bit more like tactile, I guess. And I really appreciate that they would go the extra mile to do that. I like Scott Lang.
Mhm.
He does kind of feel like he was plopped in by the TVA for this movie. Like
Yeah.
he didn't exist before then. I mean, I understand he's in prison, but his whole like Vista Corp whistleblowing job could have easily been like in a news clipping or a TV show thing on the side in one of the other movies, and they could have said Scott Lang arrested or something, and just been like, boop, here's this little nibble, right,
Yep.
to show that he exists in the past. But that doesn't happen, you know, and so it feels like he kind of just, his story starts, and like Hank Pym even is like a long proponent of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not in Captain America, which he could have been, even just briefly, could have been introduced alongside Howard Stark or something.
Right.
But like none of the characters in this movie exist beforehand, and then they all kind of just spawn in this movie, and it goes from there. I think the Pym particle is super underrated as a scientific idea. And I think along with like time travel, this is one of those things that science, like, this isn't real. we can't look at this objectively
Yeah.
and be like, oh yes, this makes sense, shrinking the space between atoms.
Mhm.
But then it also has to correct for density.
Right.
So like a small thing gets big, it should still weigh the same. But then Thomas the Tank Engine gets big and blows this house up, or this tank blows the side of this building up.
Right.
Yeah.
But then in the other direction, when Ant-Man gets small, his punches are really hard. And you're like, okay, how is this the
Right.
same?
Yeah.
And so, but it's not real. The Pym particle doesn't.
not real.
It's not even close to feasible in
Anything
our
resembling
laws
science.
of science. Yeah. So you just have to detract my STEM degree from this movie and be
Right.
like, okay, this is not real. Just like back away.
Yeah.
And then I can enjoy it. I think it's a really cool concept because it opens up the micro realm. What is it called? The quantum realm.
Quantum realm.
Quantum realm.
And that, I think that's really cool. Cross, that's his name,
Yeah.
the villain of this movie.
His
We talked about it in phase 1.
his first
how
name is
there's, like, these-
Darren.
Darren.
The villain's
Yeah.
name is Darren.
We talked about like villains being copycats in
Yeah.
phase 1, and I think this is the worst of all of them.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
worst offense.
Yeah, it's like he just wants to be rich, and he has this cool idea for a suit and these little particles or whatever that he creates. But then at the end, he's like, you know what? I gotta go on a murderous rampage. You're right. And
I'm evil now. Sorry,
yeah,
guys.
so that's just not great.
He literally wants to take Hank Pym's name off of Pym Technologies and put his name on Cross Technologies. That's
Yeah,
his
it's-
motivation.
It's really bad.
Ooh. Good villain.
His first line in the movie, so Pym walks into his lab for a presentation on the Yellow Jacket suit.
Yep.
And he sees Hope, and Hope's first line, she comes in and she's like, Hank, he says, Hope, would it kill you to call me dad? And it's like, what the heck was this? It's like, why would
What's
you do
going on
that?
here?
Yeah. And then she says something about Cross being excited to see him. And he walks in, he's like, more like thrilled.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I had to pause the movie and laugh for a little bit because I was like, what in the world did this guy just say? More like thrilled. Like, what? So I just thought that was super goofy. And then his whole character from then on is just subpar.
I feel like he acts like discount J.K. Simmons, and like, which should be a compliment, I think, but it's not. It's like, it just, not a great villain, unfortunately.
His like, they tell you he's evil by like, he shrinks a sheep and it explodes, and you're like,
so sad.
You're supposed to be like, wow, this guy,
Really evil
he
guy.
is, man.
And he's going to bring in
really evil.
another one.
Yeah.
Also, he shrunk/murdered a guy
Oh
first.
yeah, he did straight up
And
murder
then
him.
the
man.
Wiped
sheep
his
as
goo
though-
off the floor.
As though I'm supposed to care about the sheep.
The sheep more
He's
than
already
the
killed
human.
a person.
Yeah.
And we were like, whatever. But then all of a
If it
sudden,
was
the
a
sheep,
dog,
it's
you
a
would
bad
care
thing.
more.
It's like
Right.
those. It's like those scenes are out of order, honestly. Like
Yes.
I don't know.
And he says, like, he killed the sheep, and she was like, why don't we try mice first?
I
And he
thought
was
we were
like-
using mice.
He was like, what's the difference? And it's like,
what is the difference?
what is the difference? Like, I'm with him. Like, what is the difference? You killed
What
a person.
is the
That's a
difference?
problem.
Well, it's like, it's supposed to be like, oh, sheep are cuter and more innocent than
Right.
right?
mice.
But like,
He's like, what's the difference?
What is the difference?
it's the same.
Especially
Anyway,
since we had seen him kill a person.
yeah,
That's so much worse.
so dumb.
And he looks in the mirror afterwards. He's like washing his hands in the goo off. And he's like,
A long look.
am I crazy?
Yeah.
Am
Sure
I
am.
evil?
It's supposed to be like, I don't know, character development and like
Yeah.
conflict, but it's just like,
I kept expecting something to happen right there, and then it cut away.
yeah.
I was like, what? What?
I just,
It's a
it's
little rough.
fine.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a superhero movie, and that's about
Sure is.
as much as it is.
Sure
and
is.
there's some fun things, and Paul Rudd's friends are really annoying, and it's just like I just don't care anymore.
I don't understand that because I actually really like his friends.
It's just like
I don't.
it's more in the sequel that I don't like them. They're
Yeah.
fine in this one. I don't know. I really like the scenes where what's his name? Luis.
Luis, yeah.
Michael
I
Pena.
love the scene where I love the stuff where he's telling stories and you
It's
get the
perfect.
lines in other people's.
That's really clever. Yeah.
It's really
It's
clever.
like a whole new way
Yeah.
to deliver exposition.
Yeah, yeah.
I love.
I really
that.
like it. Really funny. And when wow, stumbling over my words. The Stan Lee cameo. This is probably my favorite Stan Lee
Crazy
cameo.
Stupid Fine.
Crazy stupid
Yeah.
fine. Yeah, it's so funny. A great cameo. I don't have much to say about Ant-Man. It's there.
I will say that I watched it yesterday, and I texted Jordan and I said, against my own good judgment, I'm going to sit down and watch this movie because it was another one I did not like the first time through. However, I watched it. And I love this movie, actually.
fan.
I actually really like this movie for all the reasons we've already talked about. So I also don't have much filmography, cinematography, all of that. The humor, I think maybe it's just my sense of humor. I love all of the humor in Ant-Man.
Baskin Robbins
It all
always
lands.
finds out.
Baskin Robbins always finds
That was
out.
great.
That
guy.
really gets me for some reason.
Yeah,
His
Baskin
friends are
Robbins don't
it
hilarious.
would.
I love this, the action for me. Sometimes I get marveled out. It all like feels the same. I know it's all very cool, but it's like it's another Marvel action movie. This one, because they got to play with size, I think had a lot of interesting action that was a little different that I really, really loved. Because there's one thing for them to be fighting, but then it's like a whole nother thing for them to be fighting on his daughter's play set, like with a train going around and Thomas the Tank Engine and then the actual tank. I just think it's very fun and inventive and creative in a way that we hadn't seen in a while, and I'm not sure we've really seen since too much. So Ant-Man, surprisingly, was actually a big win for me. I'm a big fan. I would watch it again
Big
today.
win.
I
Big win.
really was surprised at how much I liked it.
Dang. Well, that's great for you.
I
Oh,
also do
man.
really. I would say I like Hank Pym in this movie quite a bit as a character, minus his fatherhood decisions. I don't like Hope at all in this movie. I think she's so
Yeah.
unreasonable.
Yes.
Like I understand, like her mother died and then her father abandoned her for 2 weeks or whatever and never came back the same, not in a way that counted. And
yeah.
then she like votes him out of his own company and all this stuff. I'm like, I get it. Like, this is like childhood trauma. It's kind of built your character. But then you also come back to him when Cross is like, I'm a bad guy. What's up? And she's like, oh, wait, I need the help of my father. But then throughout the whole movie, she still resents him and is like uncooperative. And it's like, do you like him? Do you hate him? And then he tells the truth about her mother's death. And she's like, oh, it's over. I love him. I'm happy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. So I think it's
Yeah.
a little bad. She's fine in Wasp and stuff, but when you think about how she started, it kind of diminishes her character a little bit, I think. So. Okay, are we ready
There's
to rank
that.
these movies?
Yeah.
Is the time?
Okay.
Time is
We'll
9.
start at 6. I think we probably all have the same one here at the bottom.
I highly
I would
doubt
be
it.
shocked.
I
Oh.
highly doubt it.
Wow, okay.
That we have
okay.
the same one?
That we have the same one.
Oh. If Guardians of the Galaxy is at the bottom of your list, I'm going to freak out.
Who's starting? Who's starting?
I'll start. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
My bottom is Thor: The Dark World.
We're not
Sure.
explaining. We're just saying.
Yeah.
Thor the Dark World. Thor the Dark World.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my god.
By quite a bit. I will also. It's very subjective, but I'm telling you.
Pause this. Go back and listen to what he said about Thor and what he said about Guardians of the Galaxy, and
I just
see
would
which
wrap-
one you
I would
think.
Objectively,
watch-
it's a great film.
I would watch Thor
We
the
couldn't
Dark
even
World.
finish.
I would watch Thor the Dark World 2 more times before I'd watch Guardians
We didn't even
again.
finish Thor the Dark World.
You
We-
couldn't even finish.
I skipped through
would've-
half of it, and then we didn't even finish.
I
it.
would have watched the whole thing.
I didn't even finish it over here. I didn't
my
watch the
gosh.
climax.
Why is it at the bottom of your list? We're
Because
not explaining
again,
it, but
I
explain
would
it.
so much rather
World.
watch Thor the Dark World 2 more times before
That's
I would
not
watch
an
Guardians
explanation.
1 time.
Explain why
literally
you would
lying.
rather
I just
watch
don't
Thor the
enjoy
Dark
Guardians of the Galaxy.
But you enjoy Thor the Dark World.
More than Guardians of the Galaxy? Yeah, by a lot.
Wow.
All right, Joshua, what's your
That
number
is
5?
It's very subjective,
All right.
but it is a very
It is.
true thing about me.
No.
I do not like that movie.
I have Avengers: Age of Ultron at 5.
Number 5.
I have Ant-Man at number 5.
Thor the Dark World.
Okay, at least it's not
Yeah,
number
it's
1.
5. It's not number 1.
Number 4?
Okay, my number 4 is Ant-Man.
My number 4 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
My number 4 is the Winter Soldier.
Wow,
Hot take
Ant-Man.
there.
Maybe
Hot
we can
top.
put these on the screen somehow. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Maybe that'll be easier. Who's to say?
With
Well,
3,
yeah,
it's
I
so
can
hard
do
to
that
keep
in
them all straight.
post.
Maybe do that at post.
My number 3 is Winter Soldier.
Iron Man 3.
Ant-Man made it all the way up to 3 for me.
Dang.
Shocked.
My
Just a
number
shock.
2 is
Shocked.
Iron Man 3.
My number 2 is The Winter Soldier.
My number 2 is Iron Man 3.
And my number 1 is Guardians of the Galaxy.
You guys.
Mine is also Guardians of the
My
Galaxy.
number 1 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Out of all these
Wow,
movies,
wow,
Yeah,
wow.
dude, it's
he
great.
picked Age of
Oh
Ultron.
my word.
I mean, I'm glad we don't all agree on the number 1. Like that's
You know,
that's
for content.
content.
I think it is good that you
You're
showed
welcome,
up for
guys.
this phase.
Yeah.
So
It
you
would've
can
been
have your
very
hot
similar.
topics.
When I told him that we were gonna cover Phase 2 with him, he was like, "Gosh, I hate those movies." And then
Some of my least
Here we
favorite
are.
movies are in this list.
I rewatched this and I was like,
you
wow.
were so positive about. I thought you turned over a new leaf
What?
about Guardians of the Galaxy.
About what?
You were
He
so
turned
happy
over
about
the
it.
same
Oh,
leaf.
no,
I
I
And
like
it was
it.
brown on the other side too.
All he said was I liked it more, but apparently he still hates it.
I like it much more than I did. It might not be number 29 like it is now on my list.
Better than Thor: The Dark World.
I'm not on Phase 3, so I'll go ahead and say
You're like-
Volume 2 is even worse than the first one.
That is,
Oh!
I think that
Actually,
is
I might agree with
objectively
that. That's
wrong.
okay.
Wait, actually,
Volume 2 is worse. I think that's a fact.
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
worse. It's not
No.
as good.
What?
Well, saying worse implies that the first one is bad,
Right.
which is impossible to
Okay.
describe it as that. So,
Alright.
yeah. It's not bad at all. It's great.
okay. With that being said, that has been Phase 2 of the
Gosh.
Marvel Cinematic Juniverse.
Yeah.
We've
put
talked
it in
about
twice.
Phase 2. We will talk about Phase 3 next week.
That's going to be a
And if you stick
long
around, we're going to talk about Obi-Wan episodes 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Right after
No,
this.
we don't
So
have
if
to
you
talk
don't-
too much.
If you haven't seen those episodes, and you don't want it spoiled, then you can leave now. We've done all the fun part for Marvel. But if you have watched Obi-Wan episodes 3 and 4, then stick around. We're going to talk about it right here, right now. Episode 3 and 4, we're just going to kind of lump these ones together because it's been a while for me. At least with episode 3, I only watched it the one time. Jordan, you seem to have some serious and passionate thoughts, so I'd like to hear from you.
I went back to the episode where we talked about episodes 1 and 2, and I was so naive. I was so just like, this show is great, guys. I love it. I love seeing Obi-Wan again. And then I watched episode 3, and I thought, oh no, this is not good. This is not good. And then episode 4 is a little better, but
He forced me, when I was here last, he forced me to watch episode 3 because he wanted to laugh at how bad it was with me.
I didn't want to. No, I don't laugh at how bad it is. It burdens me, and it makes me sad that it's. And I don't think it's very good. You were considering not watching the rest of Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And I said, I need somebody else to experience
Yes.
this with me again.
Wow.
And I was like, why did you make me watch that with you?
So episode 3 is really my beef because it has Obi-Wan fights Darth Vader in it. And I wanted to see that, and I saw it. And it's one of the my main point is that it feels like a fan film. I don't understand how the biggest studio in all of everything history and the biggest franchise out of everything ever, one of the biggest characters from that franchise, this is his show, and it looks like this, and it's acted, it's written, it's directed, it's shot with just the absolute bare minimum of like energy, or just like I understand that they're trying to do a lot of it practically, and they're probably not using, a movie budget because it's on Disney Plus. But The Mandalorian looks fantastic. But this show, it feels extremely hollow, and the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, it doesn't feel like Star Wars to me, and it's hard to explain it without like showing it, because it's the way that they move, the way Anakin is moving, the way Obi-Wan is moving. There's this long sequence of just like Darth Vader standing all the way over there. He ignites his lightsaber, and Obi-Wan goes, and he runs away really slowly. He's just like, and then Darth Vader will pop out, and Obi-Wan will pull at his lightsaber, and he'll just run away really slowly. And that happens a few times. And then they fight, and it's just, I don't know. It just, there's no weight to it to me. And I don't like that the show is focusing on Leia so much when, like, it was marketed as, like, Obi-Wan and Anakin. And I understand there are limits to what you can do because you can't have them interact more than is canonically appropriate. It's really disappointing to me. I'm just like, we're, over halfway through now. We've only seen Anakin's face once for a few seconds, and like, I don't know. You brought Hayden Christensen back. I don't know. Do something cool.
Yeah.
I don't.
Then he has a stunt double, and James Earl Jones is the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the creativity? Like, what are we doing? It's just. I've just had a,
What are we doing?
I just had a week of just like, I saw Jurassic World last night, and I'm just like, and it's written by the guy who wrote Rise of Skywalker, and I'm just like fatigued, guys. I know this is a major problem for me, like, right? I'm just so tired of just like doing the absolute bare minimum, and like, I don't know, just can we be a little bit more creative? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Joshua? If you like it, that's great.
I had fun.
Yeah,
I think I like what you said, and I think you're correct.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I have created for this show alone. It seems that I have embodied the all Star Wars is fun, good Star Wars, yay!
Yeah.
Mentality, and I'm just existing in this positive space, and I'm like, any Star Wars is good Star Wars. I'm happy to see this happen. And so, like you said, like episode 3, there were a couple times where I was like, why is this happening? Why does this look this way? And it's just like less than good.
Yeah.
But I still had fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the lightsaber fight, like Obi-Wan hasn't used his lightsaber in 10 years. So of course he's going to lose hard. And it looks bad. And he's like awkward with it. And Darth Vader's fighting him one-handed because he's so advantaged at this point. Obi-Wan can barely use the Force in the fourth episode, right? He's just completely deteriorated as a Jedi. And so it's really sad to see him that way because he's such a great hero.
But I would counter that in episode 4, he is just straight up like one-handed deflecting like thousands of stormtrooper bolts while doing something else with his other hand. And he's just like holding back an ocean through a window. He's like, well, like that's Order 66. Like it took 5 stormtroopers to take down. You're like some of the best Jedi ever. So I'm like, which are we doing? Is he struggling with the Force? Is he, whatever? I don't know.
Yeah.
I did like episode 4 a little bit more because I enjoyed the location of the Inquisitor base or whatever it's called. I liked that location setting. I think it looked better. The Jedi tomb thing was kind of cool. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like you said, I liked episode 4 a lot more. And I heard my former roommate, texted me. He was like, "Did you watch the new episode?" And I was like, "No, I've seen some tweets on the internet saying it was terrible." And he's like, "Yeah, don't watch it." And I was like, "Well, I got a podcast, so I got to watch it." And I finished the episode and I was like, this was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
So I really like, I think other than, well, even then, in episode 3 and 4, we start to see the lightsabers, at least Obi-Wan and Darth Vader's lightsabers in the dark, and they're like super bright. Yes. And we get this scene in the interrogation room, which I'm not at all a fan of watching a child almost get tortured.
Yeah. That's not
I
great.
wasn't really interested in that.
That's good.
That's just not for me.
So personally, I just didn't really like it. And so he turns his lightsaber on and like beats up a guy with his lightsaber, kills him, and then turns it off and hides in the dark. And I was like, ooh,
yeah, it's pretty cool.
In the dark. I thought that was cool. Like just a little way to mess with like the Empire aesthetic. You can kind of get away with hiding in the dark, literally. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna let it slide for this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna be like, yeah, it's bad, but I like it anyway.
There are 2 episodes left. It could do some really cool stuff, but yeah. Do you have anything you want us to add?
With the Star Wars shows, I just have no words. The Star Wars shows, to me, from the beginning, I wasn't a big fan of Mandalorian. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Big fan of the movies.
You told me you're done with Star Wars.
I'm getting close because I didn't care about Mandalorian. I didn't care about Boba Fett. I wanted this to be like, oh, this is like close to the movies though. Like I'm going to care about this because it's characters I already know and I care about. And it just is not, it's not doing it for me. It's not grabbing me or it's just not compelling to me. So I'm getting pretty close to saying like, I've been trying to keep up with Star Wars and Marvel both at the same time. There's a lot of content to continue to stay up on. Yeah. And I'm getting pretty close to just saying episode 3 of Obi-Wan was the moment where it was like, yeah, I just don't. I'm honestly watching it still to stay up to date and so that I can still be part of the cultural conversation. but like I'm only watching it because I have to, and that doesn't feel like a good enough reason.
Yeah.
So I might really bounce on.
I don't
Star
think
Wars
I
stuff, which is
will-
frustrating because I want to love
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I will watch this one again.
No.
Right.
Like, I can definitely see myself rewatching Boba Fett. I know you guys might
Oh,
not,
gosh.
but
I hate that
and
show.
I really enjoyed Mandalorian. Season 2 is good.
I
We'll see
love that show.
how season three progresses.
Mm.
But I don't see myself rewatching this one, and that breaks my heart
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I think they bit off a little bit more than they could chew with this
Yeah.
one, and having all the delays and stuff. It's like you said, this is the biggest property and the biggest studio and the biggest character. It's impossible to meet our expectations.
Yes,
Right.
that's true.
And so unless they like just remade Clone Wars in live
Right.
Yeah.
action and told some like fun stories, then people would be like, okay, this is great. But trying to actually create new stuff,
Mhm.
impossible. He was a
Maybe-
hermit on the desert for 20 years.
Yeah.
You can't really be like, oh, you know what? Let's make up this Leia story.
Yeah.
Let's bring in the
Right.
Inquisitors
Yeah.
and do this
Yeah.
whole bit.
The Leia thing,
It's
like,
just,
they breaking their own canon, and like I
Yeah.
was on their side for a while. Like, she in the first few episodes, she only hears his name as Ben, so it makes sense in A New Hope that she would not recognize the name Obi-Wan Kenobi, that she would know that name. But in episode 4, Reva straight up is like, Leia, Obi-Wan's dead, so you should probably be sad about Obi-Wan. So Leia knows Obi-Wan. She has this whole backstory with him
Right.
come A New Hope, where she all of a sudden doesn't know who he is. That doesn't make sense. And whatever. But
I just feel like back to back, like Boba Fett, some people liked, some people didn't love. I feel like this show, some people are liking it, some people aren't loving it.
Yeah.
And I just think that like every time Disney is putting out these shows because we keep watching it. And every time, and they're a money making machine, and they're like, if you watch it, we'll make it, even if it's not
Yeah.
good. And I just think that every time they announce a new show, typically the culture's reaction is, ooh, a whole show about Boba Fett? Oh my gosh, a whole show about Obi-Wan? It's like, I think we as consumers need to temper that
Yeah.
and stop asking for things that we know they don't have the time or creative energy to actually produce well.
yeah.
It's just like we have to stop getting excited about stuff because it continues to be bad.
Yeah.
Even
Maybe-
like a sequel trilogy, it's like, oh my gosh, 3 more movies. It's like, yeah, and how did that look? How did that end up
Yeah.
for us? None of us are super
Could've been
happy
good.
about it.
2/3 was pretty good.
2/3
2/3
were really,
pretty
really
good.
good.
Yeah.
You like all of them. What are you
I like
talking
all of
about?
them separately. I hate them all together.
All right, fair enough. But yeah, so
An
I was feeling a
interesting
little
take.
bit sad, but on the other side of that coin, I watched Miss Marvel, the first episode. And I
watched Miss Marvel too.
I was just like I wasn't even I was on the other side of you. I was like, I don't think I'm going to watch this.
Yes.
It doesn't the trailers didn't speak to me. The character has never spoke to me. So I was like, I don't think I'm going to watch it. But then I watched it and I was like, is this the best Marvel Disney Plus show? Like, is this going to be the best one?
I was shocked. I was the same way. Like, I might not
It
even
was
watch
so
it.
good.
I was contemplating, like, is this the first Marvel show that I just don't watch?
Yeah.
And wow. I was
Man, they won me
it's
back
TV.
over.
so
PG
pleasantly surprised.
It was I mean, it
Was
was
it?
just yeah. It's the
Yeah, it's
first
TV
Marvel
PG.
thing ever to be PG.
Interesting.
And like it was so good. I was
Yeah.
like, what is happening?
It was
What is
so
happening?
good. It was so creative. It
I've
was
seen
inventive.
I've seen a lot of tweets where people are just like, biggest plot twist of 2022 is me being hyped for Miss Marvel
Yes.
and depressed about Obi-Wan Kenobi. like
Absolutely.
and not wanting to watch Obi-Wan. Like, what? That's just like I'm just like, this is all the things I've ever said about how Marvel it doesn't do anything creative with cinematography or like cameras and their VFX are gross.
Yeah.
This show, like, it's creative visually.
Finding new ways to
There
tell
are
exposition.
Yeah, there is color
The
in the
texting
frame.
sequence was great.
The texts
Yes.
show up
oh
in things.
my gosh.
Gosh, it's
The
good.
graffiti as she's on her bike with her friend.
I'm a little bit worried that now that she has powers and it turns into a superhero
Right.
thing, that it won't be
Oh,
as
that'll be
interesting.
We at least know episode 6.
But
will
we'll see.
be will be big
Oh, yeah,
superhero, big
we'll,
fight.
we'll see what they're gonna do. I'm there.
I'm very happy about it.
Do you want Brie Larson to show up?
No. I'm just let Miss Marvel have. Miss Marvel's gonna be in the next Captain Marvel movie, so like let Kamala Khan have her show. Brie Larson stay out. But I don't know. Maybe
Amen.
I bet
it
she
might
will, though.
service the story because Kamala Khan is obsessed with Captain Marvel. So like if she shows up,
Right.
that's good, I guess. I think Brie Larson as Captain Marvel, like there's potential there for a good character. It's just everything she's done so far has been abysmal, in my personal opinion.
I agree with Captain Marvel isn't my favorite superhero. She's probably like towards the bottom of my list for Marvel characters. But it was cool to see Miss Marvel be so obsessed with her, and it was almost like a little like, oh, okay, like I could see how maybe she's cool. Like just to see her obsess over her, it was like, okay. I left after I watched it last night, like with a higher view of Captain Marvel than I had before.
There are
And
things that like
that was nice.
there are things that you could nitpick, like the fact that there's a whole Avengers conference where
Yes.
people are dressing up like Drax and
Yeah.
Groot when they were on Earth for maybe a couple hours.
I thought about that.
Right.
Like, and they
Yeah.
know their names, and like Kamala knows everything that happened at that final battle in Avengers Endgame. Like how
It was cool
and
that they
why.
explained though Scott Lang has a podcast.
Yeah, that was.
I was
funny.
like, first of
Yeah,
all, that
he
is
must be
so
telling.
pro his character. Like
That's
that
true.
fits so well. And my idea is that he's just telling the stories, and that's how
Yeah.
the real world
That could
people
be.
they know what happened at the battles, whatever.
That's probably
fair.
the most popular.
But him
podcast
having a
of all time.
podcast, that freaking makes sense. I love that.
All right, we're hitting 2 hours
Oh,
here,
my
so let's.
word. I gotta
All right.
stop coming on.
Go
here.
watch
Yeah,
Kamala
it's-
Khan's Miss Marvel. Don't watch Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Or
Just
do.
don't.
You know, who knows?
It's fine. Do whatever you want.
You got Phase
At your own
3
risk.
movies to watch before
Yeah.
next week.
Woo!
We
a
have
lot too,
Captain
right?
America Civil War, which I'll be watching tonight. Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I saw the eye roll. Spider-Man Homecoming, Thor Ragnarok,
Yeah.
Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna
All
have to.
jam-packed in this phase.
It's so funny that phase
can't
1 is 6 movies, phase 2 is 6 movies, phase 3
11.
28.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
I
10,
can. You're gonna have to
11.
explain that look you did
11 movies.
next episode.
When you said Thor Ragnarok, I shrugged my shoulders, and Elisha freaked out. We'll talk
I'm
about it.
shocked.
We'll talk
Yeah,
about
so
I
it.
will
we
be
got a
listening
lot
to
of
it.
movies to watch. We will
Yep.
skip Obi-Wan next week and do
Yep.
the final 2 episodes during our Phase 4 episode,
Yes, sir.
which is plenty short because that's only 5 movies out right now. So we can get to that later. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Elisha, for coming back, our first return guest. Well
Happy to
done.
be
You
here.
did great. You had some wonderful thoughts and feelings. You had some terrible
Unappreciated
thoughts
thoughts and feelings, but that's fine.
and feelings. Yeah, I'm sure. Unreciprocated.
Yeah, sure.
We love you, listeners. We love having you here. Thank you so much for your continued patronage. And we're closing in on $2, by the way.
We really are.
Get hyped for
Wow.
that.
$2 each, or you guys are splitting those $2?
$1 each.
Yeah,
$2
$1
total.
each. 2 quarters equals
quarters make
$1
a dollar each.
per each of us.
Yeah, there you go. $2 makes $1 each.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Farewell. Goodbye. Auf Wiedersehen.
Oh.